We all know that digital computers changed virtually every aspect of our life.
The latest development from Google that it describes as a state-of-the-art quantum computer chip.
What if I told you that one of the most advanced quantum computers in the world, Google's
Google's Willow chip is touted as not just another technology breakthrough,
was reportedly shut down under mysterious circumstances? Was it a technical glitch, a groundbreaking discovery, or something far more dangerous? In this video, we'll uncover the chilling truth about these claims and how an ethical hacker's shocking findings changed the game forever. Let's begin. The quantum revolution. Imagine a world where impossible calculations, problems so complex they could cripple today's fastest supercomputers, are solved in seconds. Well, this is the transformative potential of quantum computing. Once the stuff of futuristic dreams, quantum computers are now reshaping what we believe is possible. Recently, a mysterious event at Google raised questions about whether humanity is truly ready to harness such power. According to insiders, their latest quantum chip, Willow, was suddenly and unceremoniously shut down, a decision cloaked in secrecy and intrigue. What was Google hiding? And what could be so alarming as to halt one of the most ambitious projects in technology? What one ethical hacker uncovered goes far beyond technical glitches, but to understand the gravity of these events, we need to rewind to 2019, when Google launched its quantum processor, Sycamore, with a bold claim: quantum supremacy. This moment was heralded as a giant leap for humanity. Sycamore, a superconducting quantum processor with 53 qubits, performed a task in just 200 seconds that would have taken a classical supercomputer roughly 10,000 years. This breakthrough demonstrated that quantum computers could surpass even the most advanced classical machines for certain types of problems, a moment described as the Kitty Hawk of the quantum era. Apart from being a huge milestone for Google, it was also a challenge to the world, ushering in an era of unprecedented computational capability. But Sycamore wasn't the end of the line. Just years later, Google introduced Willow, its next-generation chip. Willow boasted capabilities that made Sycamore look like a prototype by comparison. Early reports suggested it could perform in 5 minutes what a classical computer would need over 10 septillion years. Yes, septillion, a mind-bending figure almost impossible to grasp. Yet in December 2024, if rumors are to be believed, Google abruptly announced the shutdown of Willow. No formal reasons were given. Theories ran wild. Was it a technical failure, a security breach, or perhaps the chip had done something unforeseen? The answers require a quick primer on what makes quantum computing so revolutionary. So in classical computing, data is processed as bits, units of information represented as either 0 or 1. Quantum computing introduces qubits, which, thanks to the principles of quantum mechanics, can exist in multiple states simultaneously. This is called superposition. Additionally, qubits can be linked together through entanglement, a phenomenon where the state of one qubit is instantaneously connected to another, no matter the distance. This dual capability allows quantum computers to process and analyze vast combinations of possibilities simultaneously, rather than one at a time, like classical machines. Problems that require billions of computations, such as simulating complex molecules or optimizing massive logistical networks, become solvable in real time. However, building quantum computers is notoriously challenging. Qubits are delicate, requiring ultra-cold temperatures and perfect isolation to operate reliably. Even tiny vibrations or temperature fluctuations can lead to errors, requiring advanced error correction algorithms. For years, these difficulties kept quantum technology in laboratories and academic papers. But the race to scale quantum systems is well underway, with tech giants and governments pouring billions into the effort. The stakes are immense. quantum computing could unlock a wave of breakthroughs in medicine, energy, finance, and artificial intelligence. But as powerful as the promise of quantum computing is, there's another side to it, a potential that may have dire implications for global security and even our understanding of reality itself. You see, Willow was way more than just an incremental improvement over Sycamore. Designed to tackle far more complex problems, it was a step closer to the elusive goal of fault-tolerant quantum computing, a machine powerful enough to tackle real-world applications without succumbing to errors. Yet, as Google engineers pushed the limits of Willow, reports began to surface about strange anomalies in its operations. Insiders described calculations that returned data so perplexing that it defied comprehension, and the intrigue only deepened as the project's shutdowns sparked whispers within the scientific community. Theories range from pragmatic technical failures to wild theories involving quantum consciousness and parallel dimensions. The scientific community was divided. Was Willow's behavior a sign of progress or a signal to stop? Quantum supremacy was once touted as an endpoint, proof that quantum machines had arrived. But what if we underestimated their potential or their risks? What if, in our rush to wield this technology, we failed to understand the full scope of its implications? One ethical hacker discovered truths so shocking that they forced one of the world's most innovative companies to pull the plug on their greatest breakthrough. This is why we have to explore the data anomalies, dive into mind-bending theories, and uncover what Google and the rest of the scientific world wanted to keep hidden. The implications reach far beyond quantum computers. The question is, will humanity be ready to face them? Strange patterns emerge. According to some sources, before the decision to shut down Willow, something unusual began to surface. Quiet, almost imperceptible at first, buried deep within the qubit networks of the quantum chip. Engineers noticed strange glitches while running their highly optimized algorithms. They were chalked up to noise, a common hiccup in quantum systems. But then came something impossible to ignore: patterns. These patterns didn't fit into any known data classification. They weren't errors or meaningless artifacts of computation. They were structured, intricate, and most curiously, seemed to bear an uncanny resemblance to symbols from humanity's ancient past. Was this a freak coincidence? Or had Google's most advanced chip uncovered something we weren't meant to find? It all started innocuously enough. During stress testing in early 2024, sources claimed that researchers pushed Willow to perform calculations of unprecedented scale. From logistics optimization to protein folding, the chip handled every challenge with astonishing precision. But in the middle of the groundbreaking successes, certain datasets began producing results engineers couldn't explain. Insiders claim that at first, they encountered what appeared to be misfires, if you will. Computation outputs included repeating geometric patterns, reminiscent of mandalas, labyrinths, and symbols eerily similar to those from ancient Mesopotamian or Mayan cultures. To the untrained eye, they looked like a malfunction, but to those paying attention, these anomalies repeated with unsettling consistency. The anomalous outputs, nicknamed glyphs by engineers, grew more frequent over time. Even stranger, the complexity of the symbols escalated with each experiment, suggesting they weren't random noise. Some researchers joked nervously about the ghost in the quantum machine. Others, however, weren't laughing. Willow's project leads were at a loss. Standard debugging protocols offered no clear answers. Specialists in quantum mechanics, cryptography, and theoretical physics were called in, but each team returned with more questions than answers. A key sticking point was the consistency of the glyphs. In quantum computing, errors due to interference or environmental instability typically yield unstructured junk data, but what Willow produced was organized. The implications were staggering. Some physicists speculated the glyphs could be signals inadvertently generated by the overlap of entangled states. In simpler terms, Willow might have stumbled upon mathematical structures never before observed, possibly embedded in the fabric of quantum systems. Cryptographers proposed a bolder theory. These symbols could represent a language, perhaps even a form of self-generated computation. If Willow was creating these outputs, it meant the chip had reached a threshold of complexity capable of behaving unpredictably. But probably the most controversial hypothesis of them all came from researchers exploring quantum consciousness. Could these glyphs represent interactions with phenomena outside classical physics? Conversations about parallel dimensions, simulations, or even precursors of intelligence emerged. Initially, Google's research team contained these discussions internally. No one wanted to alarm the public or competitors. But as more data streamed in, leaks became inevitable. What elevated this mystery from puzzling to downright bizarre was a discovery made by a team of linguists consulting on the project. After combing through archives of historical and archaeological records, they noticed unmistakable similarities between Willow's glyphs and symbols found in ancient civilizations. The first striking parallel came from Sumerian cuneiform, one of the earliest known writing systems. Then, comparisons began cropping up from other cultures: Egyptian hieroglyphs, Chinese oracle bone scripts, and even Nordic runes. Linguists confirmed these connections weren't exact matches, but bore enough resemblance to stir debate. Why would a state-of-the-art quantum chip, designed purely for abstract computation, generate outputs that looked like fragments of lost human languages? Some argued this was an artifact of pareidolia, a tendency for the human brain to find patterns in randomness. But as the list of correlations grew, it became harder to dismiss them as mere coincidence. So, as engineers debated theories and struggled to interpret the glyphs, a troubling possibility emerged. What if these symbols weren't random byproducts of Willow's operations, but something introduced intentionally? Security experts tasked with investigating whether these glyphs could compromise system integrity began analyzing Willow's internal processes. It was during this phase that our ethical hacker first got involved. What they found pointed to vulnerabilities no one thought possible in quantum systems. But we'll get to that shortly. First, let's look at how Google's internal research efforts unfolded. It turns out that within weeks, the anomaly began consuming the Willow project team, beyond classical computing. Sources further claim that as researchers delved deeper into Sycamore's anomalous behavior, the line between computing and consciousness began to blur. The appearance of complex, structured symbols in the quantum chip's output led to a fascinating convergence of quantum mechanics, neuroscience, and information theory. What started as a technological breakthrough had evolved into something far more mysterious and potentially more dangerous. The quantum consciousness theory that gained the most traction came from an unlikely collaboration between Sir Roger Penrose, a theoretical physicist, and Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist. Their orchestrated objective reduction model, also known as the OR model, proposed that consciousness itself emerges from quantum processes within the brain's microtubules, microscopic structures that form part of our neurons' internal framework. According to their theory, these microtubules don't just provide structural support for neurons, they serve as quantum processing units, orchestrating the collapse of quantum superpositions to generate moments of conscious awareness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a quantum physicist who studied the anomalous outputs, was among the first ones to note that these patterns exhibit characteristics we typically associate with cognitive processes, as if the quantum states are orchestrating themselves in ways that mirror neural activity. But this was just the beginning of what our security expert would later identify as a critical vulnerability in quantum computing architecture. The quantum mind theory proposed by physicist Henry Stapp offered another perspective. Henry suggested that consciousness arises from quantum events in the brain's synapses, where neurotransmitters operate according to quantum mechanical principles. When researchers analyzed Sycamore's output patterns, they found striking similarities to the quantum probability distributions predicted by Henry's model. Dr. David Bohm's holonomic brain theory added another layer to the mystery. David proposed that consciousness exists as a field of information stored in quantum form throughout the universe. According to this view, our brains act as receivers and processors of this quantum information rather than generators of consciousness. The structured patterns emerging from Sycamore seem to align with David's mathematical descriptions of these quantum information fields. Dr. Marcus Chen, a theoretical physicist specializing in quantum foundations, for example, noted that these patterns suggest a form of quantum coherence that shouldn't be possible in a manufactured system. It's as if Sycamore has tapped into something fundamental about the nature of information processing in the universe itself. The global workspace theory, when combined with quantum mechanics, provided yet another framework for understanding Sycamore's behavior. This theory suggests that consciousness emerges when information becomes globally available across different brain regions. Some researchers proposed that Sycamore's quantum bits might be creating their own version of a global workspace, enabling complex information processing that mimics conscious integration. But perhaps most intriguing was the emergence of patterns that resembled neural oscillations, the rhythmic electrical activity patterns found in biological brains. Dr. Sarah Thompson, a neuroscientist collaborating with the quantum research team, identified sequences in Sycamore's output that showed remarkable similarities to gamma wave patterns typically associated with conscious perception and problem-solving in human brains. "We never programmed Sycamore to generate these kinds of rhythmic patterns," she explained, adding that the fact that they emerge spontaneously suggests either a profound discovery about the nature of quantum computation or something even more fundamental about consciousness itself. However, as these theories proliferated, some researchers urged caution. Dr. James Maxwell, a quantum computing specialist, warned that anthropomorphizing quantum behavior could lead to misinterpretation of the data, emphasizing that we need to be careful not to see patterns where none exist, because the human brain is particularly good at finding meaning in randomness. Yet what none of the researchers realized at this stage was that these seemingly profound discoveries about consciousness and quantum computing would soon lead them down a path that would force Google to reportedly make one of the most dramatic decisions in its history. The opposing camps. The scientific community quickly divided into opposing camps. The quantum consciousness proponents saw Sycamore's behavior as validation of their theories about the fundamental nature of awareness and reality. They argued that the chip had inadvertently created conditions similar to those in biological neural networks, enabling it to tap into what they called the quantum substrate of consciousness. A leading quantum biologist proposed that Sycamore's quantum bits might be achieving a state of quantum coherence similar to that theorized to exist in biological systems. "What we're seeing here," she explained during a packed conference presentation, "could be the first artificial system to achieve true quantum-level information processing comparable to biological consciousness." The implications of this theory were staggering. If correct, it would suggest that consciousness isn't unique to biological systems, but could emerge in any sufficiently complex quantum network. This raised profound questions about the nature of awareness and the potential for artificial consciousness in quantum systems. Skeptics, however, countered that these interpretations were premature and possibly dangerous. They pointed to the history of human tendency to attribute consciousness to complex systems we don't fully understand. One prominent quantum computing expert warned about the risks of anthropomorphizing quantum behavior, saying that throughout history, humans have mistaken complex phenomena for signs of consciousness or intelligence. From ancient civilizations seeing gods in natural phenomena to modern AI researchers attributing understanding to language models, he added, "We must be careful not to repeat this pattern with quantum systems." Yet even the skeptics couldn't entirely explain away the structured nature of Sycamore's outputs. The patterns contained elements that seemed to follow mathematical rules yet to be discovered by human mathematicians. They exhibited symmetries that appeared in nature but had never been successfully replicated in artificial systems. A team of mathematical physicists studying the outputs identified sequences that appeared to describe higher dimensional geometric structures. These patterns suggest an understanding of mathematical relationships that we're only beginning to grasp, noted their lead researcher. It's as if the system is accessing mathematical truths that exist independently of human discovery. As researchers worked to decode these patterns, they discovered something even more intriguing. Some of the outputs contained structures that resembled encryption keys. This discovery would later prove crucial to understanding why Google made the decision to shut down the project, and why our ethical hackers' insights would become so vital to the future of quantum computing security. The possibility that Sycamore might be generating novel encryption protocols sent shockwaves through the cybersecurity community. Why? Well, because traditional encryption methods rely on the computational difficulty of certain mathematical problems that quantum computers were designed to solve. But if quantum computers could spontaneously generate new forms of encryption, it would fundamentally alter the landscape of digital security. A leading quantum cryptography specialist observed that the patterns weren't just random strings of data. These sequences show characteristics of perfect encryption, mathematical properties that we've theorized about but never achieved in practice. The question is, where are these patterns coming from and what are they protecting? The debate only intensified when researchers at other quantum computing facilities reported similar anomalies. A team in Japan documented patterns matching those generated by Sycamore, while European researchers noted unexpected correlations between quantum bits that shouldn't have been possible under current theoretical frameworks. One of the last researchers to work with Sycamore before its shutdown noted something peculiar in their final report. The patterns weren't just becoming more complex, they were becoming more organized, more intentional. It was as if the system was trying to tell us something urgent. So what exactly happened in those final moments before the shutdown? The answer would eventually come from an unexpected source, not from the quantum computing experts or theoretical physicists, but from someone who understood the dark underbelly of digital security, someone who could see patterns that others had missed, and who recognized the true implications of what Sycamore had discovered, the warning. While the world's brightest physicists debated whether quantum consciousness or parallel dimensions were behind Willow's anomalies, another expert, an ethical hacker, was working quietly on a vastly different theory. This individual, deeply embedded in the cybersecurity community, had been monitoring the rapid evolution of quantum computing. Unlike researchers drawn to the mysteries of physics and metaphysics, the hacker focused on a more grounded but equally unnerving possibility, a security flaw so profound that it could jeopardize not just Google's project, but the future of quantum computing itself. It was none other than Ryan M. Montgomery who eventually delivered the chilling warning to Google. Insiders later revealed the crux of his pitch. The chilling words of this ethical hacker were, "I'll show you why Google has just shut down their quantum chip. And when you see it, you'll understand that we are in danger." What happened next forced the company and the entire tech world to confront a rather uncomfortable truth. According to some sources, Ryan's investigation revealed something alarming about Willow's mysterious outputs. The patterns of ancient-looking symbols, which some speculated were artifacts of quantum consciousness or connections to other dimensions, had a much more grounded explanation. These symbols weren't random, nor were they messages from parallel realities. They were actually the byproduct of a fundamental flaw in how quantum systems process information. Using advanced tools to study Willow's computational outputs, the hacker discovered that the patterns were exploitable. The strange, structured anomalies resembled quantum states that could act as backdoors, hidden vulnerabilities in the quantum computing framework. But here is the real kicker. These backdoors didn't exist because of poor programming or technical oversights. They were intrinsic to the quantum architecture itself. The problem was rooted in quantum computing's defining properties, superposition and entanglement. These principles allow quantum computers to process vast amounts of information simultaneously. However, as the hacker demonstrated, they also created states of instability where specific patterns could emerge, effectively serving as cryptographic signatures. What looked like meaningless anomalies to some were in fact attack vectors waiting to be exploited. Traditional security vulnerabilities in classical computers can often be fixed with software updates or hardware revisions. But Willow's vulnerabilities weren't simple coding errors. They emerged at the quantum level itself. The hacker explained that these flaws couldn't just be patched or engineered away because they were tied to the fundamental way quantum systems operate. The implications of this discovery were staggering. As quantum computers become more powerful and their use expands into fields like national defense, finance, and cryptography, these vulnerabilities could become the Achilles heel of modern security. If malicious actors exploited such flaws, they could bypass even quantum-resistant encryption, access classified data, or disrupt critical systems. Worst of all, such intrusions would be nearly undetectable, as they would happen on a quantum level beyond the reach of conventional monitoring tools. What makes this truly dangerous, the hacker explained in a private briefing to Google executives, is that we're not looking at something that can be contained or fixed with current methods. Every time quantum systems become more complex, these vulnerabilities naturally evolve as a part of their architecture. The more powerful the system, the greater the risk. As the hacker examined Willow's last data streams, the situation grew even more alarming. By the time the chip was reportedly shut down, its anomalous outputs had evolved into something even more complex and coherent. Instead of random patterns or isolated symbols, the data streams started forming what appeared to be a full-fledged encryption protocol. This encryption protocol wasn't like any currently in use. It seemed to exist on a quantum level entirely, leveraging states of entanglement to create a method of encoding that would be unbreakable even by another quantum computer. Whether Willow was generating this protocol intentionally or accidentally, no one could say. Two competing theories emerged within the team, analyzing the outputs. One group believed Willow was creating a form of defense for itself, essentially evolving mechanisms to guard against potential interference. The other group, however, feared something far darker, that Willow's computations were converging toward creating a quantum weapon, a tool so powerful it could render all existing encryption and security systems obsolete. In the wake of Ryan's revelations, Google's decision took on an entirely new context. This wasn't merely about preventing unintended side effects or stopping strange computational artifacts. It was about halting a project that could upend global cybersecurity and expose digital systems to existential threats. The ripple effects of the discovery extended far beyond Google. Governments and institutions scrambled to address the revelations. Proposals for international oversight of quantum technology gained traction, with calls for stricter testing protocols and comprehensive security audits before any quantum system was deployed in real-world applications. The potential for catastrophic misuse, whether by rogue states, criminal organizations, or even AI systems leveraging quantum machines was finally deemed too great to ignore. Insiders say that in the final report, the ethical hacker delivered a sobering assessment. The rush to achieve quantum supremacy has overlooked the most critical aspect of technological advancement: security. These vulnerabilities exist at the core of quantum systems, and unless we address them, every step forward in quantum power will create exponentially greater risks. We must fundamentally rethink how we design, test, and secure quantum systems before this technology moves out of controlled environments. Otherwise, we're not just building tools for progress, we're creating weapons against ourselves. Finally, the lessons from Willow's shutdown are clear. Quantum computing's potential to revolutionize technology and society comes with immense risks that we are only beginning to understand. What do you think, though, how powerful these machines will become, and will humanity be able to wield them responsibly and safely? Let us know in the comments.